VSiN Action Update.
I'm Jonathan Von Tobel with your VSiN Action Update. We're going to start in the NBA. We've got a loaded slate of games today. At 12:30, we have a tip-off in Toronto between the Raptors and the Cavaliers. The Cavs are going for the sweep. Right now, the Cavaliers minus 6.5 here at the South Point Hotel and Casino. Total points scored 210.5, minus 110 on both sides. Moneyline prices, Cavs minus 320, Raptors plus 260. At 3:30, we get started in our nation's capital for Game 4 of Celtics-Wizards. Wizards looking to tie the series at 2 games apiece. Washington minus 4.5 right now. Celtics plus 170 on the money line. Wizards minus 190 on the other half of that. Total points 216. And then the nightcap is in Houston between the Rockets and the Spurs. Another Game 4. Rockets minus 5.5 right now. The Spurs plus 180 on that money line. Rockets are minus 210. Total is 213. Taking a look at the Major League Baseball scoreboard. 12:37, we get started in Anaheim between the Angels and the Astros. Mike Fiers getting the start for the Astros, minus 111 on the road. Matt Shoemaker, the starting pitcher for the Halos, they are plus 101. Total runs is 8, minus 110 on both sides of that one. At 105, over in Oakland, the Athletics take on the Tigers. Daniel Norris gets the start for Detroit. They're plus 115 in Oakland. Sonny Gray getting the start for the A's, who are minus 125. Total runs 8.5, over, plus 105, under, minus 125. Rangers taking on the Mariners in Seattle. Dylan Overton getting the start for Seattle. Seattle minus 145 at home. Rangers and Andrew Kashner plus 135. Total runs 8.5, under, even money, over, minus 120. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel. This has been your VSiN Action Update.
Welcome to My Guys in the Desert with Brent Musburger on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Sirius XM Channel 204.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
Interact with the show and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at VSiNLive. Now live from the VSiN studios.
Last game of the year, Brent. Can't hold anything back now.
It's Brent Musburger.
Welcome, everybody. I always call this the day after the Derby. Woulda, coulda, shoulda Sunday. But at least we had one big winner here at VSiN, and Patrick McGuigan, the handicapper, is with us. Vinny Maiulo is with us. Ron Flatter is standing by at Churchill Downs. Before we get to the details and what's next on the road to a possible Triple Crown, Vinny, in about 10 minutes, are going to drop the puck in a closeout game in Nashville. Nashville leading St. Louis 3-2. Talk to us about the money.
Predators $1.65 on the opener, Brent, and holding steady. Slight action on the Predators though, so it may tick up here. Favorites are 4-1 in this series. The only time the dog won was Game 1. Total holding steady at 5 under. Shaded $1.30 to the under. Only the first game of the series went over, so we're looking for some Blues money because majority of parlays are with the Predators here.
You know what's interesting? The connection between hockey and the Kentucky Derby winner, okay? One of the owners of Always Dreaming is also the majority owner of the Florida Panthers. And, of course, was it a couple years ago? Nyquist struck and named after a hockey player, a great player with the Detroit Red Wings. So we check in now, the aftermath, and there's always a lot of stories emerging on the morning after. You want to find out the condition and everything. We're going to go live to Ron. And Ron, what about the condition of some of the horses coming out of the Derby? That was a rough ride for some of them.
It certainly was, and for Classic Empire, it was the roughest of all. He finished fourth, and a very impressive fourth, after being hemmed in by a chain reaction at the beginning of the race where horses were coming in from the auxiliary gate, pinching against him, and he got crushed. Wound up with what is effectively the equine equivalent of a black eye. It's really swollen. The right eye will determine whether he's going to be able to go in the Preakness Stakes. Assistant trainer Norman Cassie says, I don't see there's any reason we don't send him, but his dad, the trainer Mark Cassie, says, wait just a second. We want to see the condition of that eye. Eye injuries are not unusual in races with a lot of horses. We saw the same thing happen with J. Boy Echo, the Dale Romans horse, in his last prep race, had a similar situation. The swelling went down within a day's time, and he was back on course. That's what we'll look for in about 24 hours in the case of Classic Empire. But as far as the winner is concerned, let's not bury the lead. Always Dreaming had a wonderful trip around the track. Todd Pletcher this morning told me that he looked great coming out. He ate up. He is sound, and he's raring to go. They'll ship him to Pimlico for the Preakness in the next 24 to 48 hours.
All right, Ron, stick right with us. I'm going to go to my favorite Irish handicapper, Mr. McGuigan. Mr. McGuigan, I thought that our horse was going to come and appear at the NPR rodeo finals. What in the world went on with Thunder Snow?
Well, that's the question that needs to be answered, and we have to say this. You know, when he was head and head with Always Dreaming, the problem with that was they were still in the starting gate. that was the only time he was head and head with the winner of the race.
So here's my woulda, coulda, shoulda, okay, on Thunder Snow. No, we didn't have the winner. We didn't have the fastest horse. But by golly, we had the smartest horse. He wanted no part of that rodeo. He said, I'm out of here. Get me on that jet. I want to go back to Dubai where the weather is beautiful.
I've played this game for over 40 years. It's a wonderful sport. That is the first time that I've lost a wager because a horse came out as a bucking bronco.
Ron, is there any word? Thunder Snow, I take it, was not at all injured, right? It just came up rank, didn't like the circumstances. What's being said about the number 2 horse?
Right. The veterinarian on call did examine him, said there was nothing wrong with him afterward. He walked back to his barn with handlers, and then they disappeared. The one indication he had that the miss came from a tweet from his exercise rider saying, we're stumped as to what happened. The best guess right now is he got spooked by the crowd. The gate here at Churchill Downs is not anywhere, well, let's put it this way. It's much closer to the crowd here than the gate is, say, at Meydan, where he won the UAE Derby. All I'm knowing is, hey, Patrick, where are you taking me for dinner?
Wow. You deserve that, Patrick. Wow. So I know about that bet, and your horse came through. Of course, any horse that you would have had would have won this bet. Oh, by the way, you know, Ron, I had to run out, and Patrick Maher took over for the rest of the day, and you did some great reports. But as you know, we had a big winner here yesterday. Roll the videotape. Roll the videotape.
Ron, Dave Berg here at VSiN hit the trifecta.
Did he really?
He picked the 3 top horses.
Yeah, I'll have to have a word with him.
Why does Ron seem upset about that? Ron, we're supposed to be on the same team here, buddy. You seem distraught.
When he's buying everyone a dinner at Michael's, then I'll really be happy.
Ronnie, I have to tell you, in fairness to our man, Mr. Berg, okay? Yeah. He took a whole group into Michael's for cocktails. And remember Rachel and Emily, the 2 gals from Indiana?
Absolutely.
And they came by, and they had a cocktail on our big winner, Dave Berg, an $8,000 trifecta. Wow. Vinny, that's Ron, impressive, lad.
Ron, you look, when you heard that, you look like you got hit by Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah.
What a shot,
else,
buddy.
My friend James Scully from twinspires.com in Brisnet hit the superfecta. He won about $75,000 on a $364 investment. I'm just wondering when he's going to give me a ride in his Mercedes.
Well, we were looking at the Derby future pools, going into the race yesterday. So there were 4 Derby future pools. Always Dreaming was not even listed in the first 2 pools. He was in the field, and then in pool 3. He paid $86.40 for pool 3 in the Derby Future book, the National Derby Future book.
It's interesting because the track he took to get to this, he ran sprints, of course, last year as a 2-year-old. Didn't run his first mile race until either late last year or early this. Got on board with Johnny Velasquez riding him, and he's 4 for 4 now of races over a mile with Velasquez and, of course, Pletcher. And so that's something right there. They knew he had some distance in him, that the sprints were just to try to get him used to schooling on the track. But they've really got a load of a horse here right now.
Yeah.
And I suspect that between Always Dreaming and Classic Empire, we've got our rivalry shaping up for the 3-year-olds. By the way, we should mention one other injury of note. McCracken, who was also involved in that chain reaction, trainer Ian Wilkes was actually putting wraps around his hind legs this morning when I caught up with him at the barn, and he told me that he wound up with a puncture cut to one of his hind legs. Nothing serious. They want to make sure it doesn't get infected, but the rest of the Triple Crown is out for McCracken.
All right, Ron, listen, great work all weekend long, and Bergie, Berg, is waiting for you to buy you a cocktail when you get back to VSiN tomorrow. Great job, Ron. Thanks a lot.
Is he done with the ladies from Indiana yet? I just want to make
sure. And Ron Flatter with the last word. Take care, my friend. We're going to take a break right now. We'll come back with Vinny and Patrick. We've got a few more things to clean up. I want to find out if there's a fresh shooter coming to the Preakness from Patrick, and we'll have more on the Derby and a look ahead to the NBA as we continue live here on VSiN.
It's My Guys in the Desert, only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, Sirius XM Channel 204. Welcome back to My Guys in the Desert with Brent Musburger, broadcasting live from the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda Sunday. Vinny, you had McCracken number 15. I had Classic Empire number 14 as my key horse. We both got involved in the same train wreck at the start.
Boy, and you could see we knew there would be a race to get to the inside at that first turn, but it was even more pronounced. And Patrick brought a good point up off air. The track condition maybe did have something to do with that, with some of that footing, and of course, again, a lot of luck involved with the Derby to begin with, and now you throw the off track into it, and
And I
There
do
it
have
is.
to say, I thought Todd Pletcher did a tremendous job of training Always Dreaming
Yeah.
up to this race. He had 3 preps coming in, and it was one of his better training jobs for a Kentucky Derby victory that he had yesterday.
And
Yeah.
he was pretty emotional yesterday, which somehow you have to be, right? You won
Listen,
the Kentucky Derby. Good for him.
Those were tears.
Yeah.
Those
I
were
mean,
tears. When he was 1 for 45.
Yeah.
He knew he was feeling heat.
Yeah.
In fairness to him, and his team brought it up, some of the 45 probably didn't deserve actually to be competing at Kentucky Derby, but that's where the owners want to go. That's the one race that somebody who owns a few racehorses want to go to the Kentucky Derby,
Yeah.
Patrick.
You only get one chance in the Kentucky
Sure,
Derby
yeah.
a year. And I mean, how many owners have had the opportunity to be there for and have their horse running in the Kentucky Derby? I mean, that has to be a thrill, just a total excitement, whether you have a chance or not.
Right.
They put in a point system, you qualified, go and run. You just never know.
Absolutely. And Vinny, what about the overall amount of money bet
Well,
yesterday?
I have to tell you, the response was record setting nationally. $209.2 million wagered on the Derby here in the state of Nevada, up $600,000 from last year. $5.6 million wagered on the Kentucky Derby here in Nevada alone. And there was a report this morning, $209 million bet on the Kentucky. So a great response. Whether it did not deter people, I get, when you think about it, race was wide open, and so there were some great storylines. I'm glad that there was some build up to it in terms of promotion and publicity and things like that. I think I would love to see more of that, especially as we get now into the second and third legs of the Triple Crown.
Another telltale sign. The overnight television ratings for NBC were up into double digits, way up over the last few years.
Good.
So it was up over a 10. That is a big overnight number. And from people who I talked to who were able to watch more of it than I was able to on NBC, I did watch the last hour of it. They said that NBC did a great job in covering the races and bringing the stories, Patrick. The stories out of the Derby are magnificent. The people, the handlers, the horses, everything. It just kind of all came together. So I guess my question for you is, how can horse racing keep it going? How can they prevent it from being just one day a year when everybody gets involved?
Create events. And that's what horse racing is doing. People love events. So we have the Triple Crown. 2 weeks from yesterday, we have the second leg of the Triple Crown, the Preakness. And if Always Dreaming wins that, then we have a potential for a Triple Crown winner. And the last one was American Pharoah. Before that, we had a 30-year gap. You keep it with the events. The Travers Stakes is a big event in the summer. After the Triple Crown, there's a little lull, and then it starts picking up with the handicap horses, and you create events at different racetracks, at Saratoga, at Del Mar. The Breeders' Cup is a tremendous event. Stronach Group has come up with the Pegasus Stakes race, the biggest money event of all racing in the world. That has become an event. So, and here at the South Point, we have seminars going through. We'll have a Preakness seminar, Friday night at 6 p.m. Prior to the Preakness. We had the Grand Ballroom open. Brent, we had over 1,000 people up in the Grand Ballroom yesterday, not counting what we had in the race book. This place was jam-packed.
Right, and
we celebrate horse racing here.
Yeah, and had to open a couple of windows here on the sports side, too, to accommodate it. Brent, I would love to see us borrow take a page from English and Australian racing, where they do a better job of coordinating races, too. Typically, there's the tracks here compete for viewership and for handling. In the meantime, with interstate simulcasting, maybe just have it to where there's a race every 7 minutes or so, 8 minutes, like they do, and they're coordinated. So at the end of the day, coordinate the timing of the races here, I think, would add to it. And again, of course, more coverage on television and on the phone apps.
Okay, so the next event, obviously, is the Preakness. 2 weeks from yesterday. And my question is, a couple horses were unable to get in to the Derby because the field was full at 20. Do we have any fresh shooters, as they're known, coming into the Preakness who have a chance against Always Dreaming?
Brent, that's a great question, and I believe we do. Remember how they were knocking the Santa Anita Derby? And I said, yes, they did run a slow final time. I make power ratings on horses, and I make an internal power rating and a final time. And Battle of Midway, I said, is a horse you have to use in the exacta, trifecta, and superfecta, not on the win end. And the only reason not on the win end, he had no 2-year-old foundation. And we've only had one horse in the 143-year history now of the Kentucky Derby that's won the Kentucky Derby with no 2-year-old foundation. That was Apollo in 1886. So I said, this horse has the highest number in the race. He can't win, all on internal power rating. But a horse coming out of the Santa Anita Derby that did not get in was Royal Mo. Royal Mo, trained by John Sheriffs, ridden by Gary Stevens, had a workout and is going to the Preakness. He's back in Kentucky right now. They're shipping over, and they're going in the Preakness and have one big shot at upsetting Always Dreaming.
Would you have given Royal Mo a shot in the Derby if
he was my top horse?
Better than Thunder Snow, Patrick?
Better than Thunder Snow, yeah.
Good solid connections, especially to Gary Stevens factor, no doubt about it. And I think what else we'll see, and we typically see this, as you know, Patrick, we'll see some Maryland breds that get involved with the Preakness. So there'll be the horses for the course theory that comes into play too. They'll make it interesting.
But Always Dreaming undoubtedly will be the favorite, certainly the morning line favorite going in, and I think the public will fall in behind the connections. The connections, you can't beat Todd Pletcher and John Velasquez in the irons. I mean, when you watch over and over, as we did this morning, the stretch run, Velasquez is in perfect shape. It had a bias toward the inside. It was unquestionably that was down there. And he probably felt, he didn't know who it was, he probably felt a little heat coming on that inside lane, and watch him subtly take Always Dreaming and seal that up. If you're going to beat me, you're going to have to move to the outside. He knew he had those horses. He looked in like jockeys do, and he had plenty of horse left. You had the right pilot coming into that stretch. If you had a Derby horse, and it wouldn't make any difference which one, and you hit the stretch, and you got a little bit of a lead, you want Velasquez in the irons.
Well, he certainly proved it yesterday. And again, there were so many. We broke down so many angles, but he did. And you need a great trip given the circumstances.
Absolutely.
And he performed.
The big thing was this horse had athletic ability. See, I don't like the one-run horses that need everything set up for them. You know, they need that front speed to battle, and then they come running late. This horse has what I call athletic ability. He had enough speed to maneuver, get position, and then make his move and sustain a very strong run.
Yeah, it was a great show, and the wagering, the television audience, the chatter afterwards, and now in 2 weeks we will have Patrick back, of course, giving us the winner. Although I think he's already told us, Royal Mo, is that who we...
Well, right now, that's who I'm looking at.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll give you time to change your mind.
After my bucking bronco, I don't know.
Vinny, we've got a busy day and a lot of sports. I am going to focus in on one game that everybody can watch later tonight on ESPN, baseball game. The New York Yankees, who have gone into Wrigley Field and have won the first 2 games of this series against the Chicago Cubs. The Yankees right now are riding a 4-game win streak, and of course the Cubs are headed the other direction, having lost 2 in a row. This will be a heavily viewed baseball game tonight, and I'm going to say this. The Cubs made baseball relevant throughout the country last year. People love the Cubs. But baseball is always better when the New York Yankees are competing. The New York Yankees are sort of like Notre Dame college football, Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. Millions love them, and millions can't stand them. So the New York Yankees are in Wrigley Field tonight, Vinny. Who do we have in the Yankee Cub game? What are the numbers showing us?
Severino against Lester here, Brent, and the Cubs open $1.34 favorite. A little surprising. The Yankees are getting the action here. Typically what folks will do, especially if one team has won the first two games, they'll bet against the sweep, and I suspect at some point we'll see Cub money. They're down to $1.26 right now here at the South Point. Under money showing 7.5, shaded to the under on the opening line. It's now 7 flat. So Yankees getting the early attention, but given the time of this game, it'll be a primetime game, 5:05 here in the Pacific. When you think about this, every parlay will be going to that game, and then anybody who wants to make a solo bet on it is going to have all day to do so. Cross-sport parlays, again, lots of that action here at the South Point. NHL playoffs, and then you've got 3 NBA games, too. Oh, and by the way, one of those NBA games, Spurs-Rockets, Game 4, starts at 6 o'clock. So they're very close. A lot of crossover action between Spurs-Rockets and Yankees-Cubs today.
Latest over-under number in Wrigley Field is?
7 flat.
Okay, that means the wind is coming in a little bit. They don't have that friendly wind in the friendly confines, as it's known, because Severino, he has given up 6 home runs in 32 innings, and Lester of the Cubs has given up 4 home runs in 29 innings. If you're wondering a little bit about Severino, walks and hits compared to innings pitched, always a key gambling statistic to take a look at. And for Severino, less than 1 an inning, that's outstanding. Okay, you total the hits and the walks per inning. Lester, not so good. 1.49, about 1.5. His one-loss record, 1-1. Severino is 2-2.
And, Brett, we were speaking yesterday, and we talked going into the season that if the Yankees got any kind of pitching, they would become relevant again and compete for the division. And I think their pitching is what's surprising a lot of folks, and certainly, you put that with their hitting. They're getting healthy now as well. So it's going to be – we've seen Yankee money also on the future book.
Have we?
Definitely. And when you look at that, they're a team